your role in our value creation. So you think about it, again, you start from the client perspective. You start with that question, why should I choose you? And when you answer that breakdown of why your organization is specific, you will quickly see how the delivery driver, how the customer service person, how the accounting person, how the whole soup is made by individual roles, because we can't deliver what these clients are asking us to deliver without you in your role. So you have to bring it back to them by what you're trying to accomplish with that client. And through that client, when there are advocates, here's where we win.
Well, today on the Intentional Leadership Podcast, we have John Ravaris. He has been working in sales and marketing and strategy for over 35 years. We met in the cleaning industry, cleaning toilets, mowing lawns, and he was selling chemicals at the time, and we needed it. It was Diversity, if I recall.
Yep.
John now just finished his first book, for the 40 Roadmap, and it's about discovery, development, deploying, and delighting your clients and your employees and your team. So welcome, John. Good to see you.
Graham, great to see you. And it's interesting. You're exactly right. We met in an industry that we loved and had some fun in, and made up a lot of great people. So I'm glad we've stayed connected, and I'm glad we get a chance to chat today.
It's one of those industries that is really tight knit. People love each other, and even if you're competitors, you can be your best friends, and it's really unique in that way. And I think it's because people are used to serving and helping one another is why. So it's really fun.
It really is. It's funny when we used to go to those conferences and you would see people from the same industry, obviously, sitting in the same room and sharing, but you would actually see competitors in the same market sitting in the same room and knew each other. And then, you'd be sitting, behind the person who you might have lost a piece of business to or taken a piece of business from. And sure enough, they're chatting at the cocktail party. So it is a pretty interesting industry from that perspective. And I think feeds a little bit into our discussion today. I think people in this industry believe that they deserve to win. And sometimes if you're not doing a great job, you deserve to lose. So people are always looking for more ways to improve their businesses, which I think is neat. And I know we'll touch on that a lot today.
Yeah.
Because it's something your audience is passionate about.
For sure. Well, in 2023, you stepped away from the commodity world, whether it was the service side of it or just the chemical side, and started UVP Solutions. Tell us a little bit about that. What's that look like?
Yeah. So, as you go through life and you get a little older, you start kind of looking at what your unique ability is, right? We all have this unique ability, what we're better than anybody in the world at. And when I looked through really my career, the thing that I was really good at it, and still something that, I have a passion about, is this ability to look at maybe what people would think are disconnected components, right? So if you're doing discovery and you're talking to your employees and you're talking to your clients and you're looking at competition, and you have to put all these kind of disparate pieces together into something that makes some sense. I found that that's what I was really good at through really a career in marketing, a career in sales. And so really UVP Solutions is really an advisory. It's a consultancy, but we really try and advise our clients on how to understand their business at a really deep level, understand their clients at a really deep level, understand their competitors at a really deep level, and then put together really a complete package of the organization that articulates that well. So really UVP Solutions is its goal, its purpose is to help businesses really, as the book says, define value, drive growth, define the value that they create for clients, and then turn that into growth enablement.
Great. So you've looked under the hood of hundreds of companies. What's the one thing that nearly every owner gets wrong and about what makes them different? The blind spot that maybe they're, costing them deals or losing deals about.
The one that comes to mind most often is that this work is primarily driven internally. It people, leaders, for whatever reason, feel as though, whether it's their history, I've been doing this 25 years. I have friends who are our clients. They'll tell us what they need. There's this perception that I have a sense, at least, what I think our clients want and what our organization is good at. And if you can just help me put my ideas on a piece of paper and take those out to the field, I think we'll be really successful. And what I like to say is discovery and really understanding who you are as an organization is more multifaceted than that. It really is a 360 approach from internally, your employees, and externally, your clients. So even when people focus internally, a lot of times you're developing core values, you're developing your purpose statement, you're developing your go-to-market strategies, and you're doing that in a room of 6 or 7 key leaders in the business. And what I've always seen, and you guys are entrepreneurs as well. What I've always seen is when you open that up and ask your employees what really makes us unique and different, you get a whole bunch of additional information than what you thought, and it's much more robust. And when you do the same with your client, you get the same, much more rich, much more robust information. So I think the one big mistake is that assumption that we know best. And, it's the old piece around being curious and really wanting to dig deep and understand not what you know, but what might be right in front of you that you might be missing.
That's interesting. That leads me to the thought I had is, so if I'm the business owner or actually you're the business owner, I'm the client or prospect, and I say, why should I choose you? Why should I choose you, John? How come most business owners can't even answer that question? What's your thought on that?
It's that next phase that follows up your first question, which is because they don't have a good kind of 360 view of their organization and how they create value. When that question's asked, they traditionally, I don't want to say digress, but digress to the talking points, right? Mm-hmm. All the industries have talking points, whether it's great customer service, right? Or whatever those talking points are, very client-centric. We're a people-first organization. When you don't have a good sense of who you are, and when you're asked that question, you become almost a generalist by design because you're articulating what you think that client wants based on that perception. I talk about it all the time because I think every business owner, every marketing organization, every sales team, anybody who touches the organization or has a role in the organization to touch clients, they have to understand the answer to that question, and you have to do it right. The old elevator speech. You have to be able to answer, why should I choose you versus your competitor in 30 seconds or less. It needs to be competent. It needs to be credible, and it needs to be, share a level of credibility and competence that really drives a decision the way you want to drive the decision.
Yeah. So throwing it back out there as a practice then. So if I walk up to you and I say, hey, John, Tell me about your best customer, why they chose you, and then why did they choose you over someone else? Is your answer going to match theirs?
And that's the 360 view. It's a great question, right? Because when you answer that internally where we started and you don't validate it externally, you're absolutely right, Graham. You can have an answer to that question that you think is competent and compelling, and it doesn't hit the mark on what your client is looking for from you or your competitors as a supplier. So you're absolutely right. In discovery, we actually talk about understanding what your client is looking for, understanding your strengths, putting those together in a unique value proposition. And there's a whole chapter on writing that in pencil, because once you have that thought about why we're special, what Mr. Client, Mrs. Client you're trying to accomplish, and here's the value we bring and the execution we bring to do that, does this resonate with you? Because you have to validate your thinking through that whole process to make sure you get it right. And it could be simple terms that you use, the way you articulate something that it doesn't resonate with a certain vertical market, whether you're in healthcare or industrial or whatever that might be. So you absolutely want to test to make sure that what you think the value you're actually creating by asking your client if that's important to them.
Right. So can you tell from walking into a business if they have aligned the 360 from the internal and the external and done this work just from the feel that you get?
It's interesting. If you give me 3 questions or less, I absolutely can. If you give me 2 questions, I absolutely can. And if you only gave me 1 question, it's that if I asked 5 people in your organization why a client chooses you, out of the 5, how many would answer it the same way? And typically on that score, you can figure it out.
Okay.
You get a pretty good idea pretty quickly if the work has been done. It's, when's the last time you conducted employee interviews to understand your strengths and cultural differences in an organization? Well, when's the last time you really spoke and talked to 5 clients in the healthcare vertical market to understand what's happening there and what the key issues are there, not last year, but this year, because things changed? When's the last time you really looked at your competitors and saw how they represent themselves in the marketplace and why is it different? Back to our old cleaning example, one of the best things in that business is family businesses, right? You all have one, and we're all very prideful of our family business, and we should be. The only problem is when you put your business up against your 3 or 4 or 5 competitive set, and 5 or 4 or 3 out of however many you look at are also family businesses. If that's the case, those are what we call like competencies. Not that they're still not valuable, but you better make sure that you're articulating the value of your family business over somebody else's family business. Maybe it's more generations, maybe it's the competency and the skills that different members bring. Whatever it is, you still have to differentiate from other people who do what you do in like ways. So I get it's all about asking those questions and understanding where and how people are kind of gathered their information, and it gives you a pretty good idea if this work has been done recently or not.
Mm-hmm. So with that, if you've worked with family founder-owned businesses and you've also been in the big corporate, what tell us a little bit about what's different between those two if you're evaluating the internal and the external.
It's interesting. You may be surprised, but there isn't a whole lot of difference. There really isn't a whole lot of difference. The smaller family-owned, founder-led organizations where you can do this work more easily, I've actually seen have more success. In the larger organizations that I've worked, the work is actually not more difficult to do from a data gathering perspective and a value proposition creation perspective. Really, it's in that deploy perspective where you really have to work harder, because there's so many more people that have to deliver the message. Those people are decentralized in numerous locations. They have, different sets of kind of go-to-market strategy. So there's more dynamics there. But from an overall kind of creating the work piece, there's not a whole lot of difference. Really, where it starts getting more dynamic is when you're deploying and trying to get a larger set of people on the same page.
Okay. Well, that leads us right to the 4D roadmap. Why don't we dig into that? So we have discover, develop, deploy, and delight. And everybody needs all four. And so why don't you start with discover? Tell us a little bit about that. And
Yeah. So as we talked before, really there's 3 or 4 major components of it. That is really the understanding of internally from doing employee interviews. I've seen owners of small businesses, when they debrief and when we debrief, employee interviews, get emotional about what employees said about their organization and how special those employees feel about that organization. I've seen them get emotional about really the strengths of the organization that people feel are in place, and the support that they get from coworkers and management and leadership. So really, it's a matter of talking to employees, and what you're really trying to get there, Graham, is a real feeling of your cultural uniqueness. So many people will tell you that the only true differentiator in the world is the culture your organization has. The one thing that people truly can't copy is that culture. And through that really discovery process of employees, you're really trying to understand that cultural uniqueness. That comes to two big pieces for me. It's your core values and it's your purpose. And why not mission and vision? And the reason being, when we're talking about unique value proposition, mission and vision kind of set stage, kind of tell you where you're going. But what will differentiate you from a buyer, and what a buyer, client, prospect cares about, is who you are as an organization and why do you do what you do, and do those align with me as part of my buying decision. That next kind of component is that client we talked a little bit about before. But this is really specific. With these clients, good ones who you trust and will give you good information, who are innovative and know the marketplace and where it's going, not just today, but in the future, it's really understanding pain points and success factors. Most people get pain points, right? They understand that if I alleviate pain, then I really build some credibility with my organization. Success factors are a little different. Success factors is when I hit that base level of service and support, how do I align more with you as a client of what you're trying to achieve? For example, our clients in the cleaning business, right? Janitorial is one of the 6 or 7 soft services that they manage. They also do the plants and the parking lot and the security guards and the meeting space, and the whole piece kind of comes together to deliver this client experience, right? Inside the client's occupant experience, the person who is in that building. Although we have just the cleaning portion of that, we play a role in the whole facility feeling and delivering an occupant experience. So how our service, right, getting the building clean, pain points eliminated, how does that service hit and promote larger the feeling of success? And that's really what you want to get to. That's where stickiness really, really happens. And then we've talked about the competitive piece. We've talked about kind of that family business. You really have to know who you're competing against and how you're competing against them to differentiate yourself.
yeah, I think that's what you say is exactly right. We can all, look up and see, oh, the dwell time on this is 22 seconds to clean a toilet, or, the tile grout, those things anybody can do. It is showing up and the culture. Am I creating a building that is healthy and clean and easy to walk into and a delight to walk into? We'll use your word, versus, ooh, does anybody care?
Yeah.
It's a little tired. A little TLC could go a long way. So, and that would be the culture piece, because you, as an owner, bring down the culture of, we care about these buildings and we want to treat them as our own. And it's important to do that. And so you start discovery, the first D, you start discovery with internal and talking to your team and everybody there. Externally, you go talk to your clients and hopefully even some prospects on the discovery. Any other piece of the discovery, or then it just goes into the development phase?
No, it's a great add-on. There's one piece that most people don't think about that I really like, and that is vendor partners. So vendor partners,
Because you're an old vendor. Come on.
that's what it is. What's interesting is, us old vendors, we never got asked these questions. So when you ask us, we chirp like birds. What's really interesting, if you think across the different vendors, different partners who help you successful in your business, those folks typically not only call on you or supply you or partner with you, they often partner and supply with other people who do what you do. And just by asking those folks, and you don't have to ask them by name. You don't say, hey, how do I compare to XYZ, my competitor? But what you say is open-ended questions. And in the book, I talk about, the Italian restaurant who's trying to get information about what size containers their competitors are offering, because, the size of the portion is a huge cost of food. So you don't say, hey, what is, Angelina's Italian restaurant using for takeout? They say, hey, of the other restaurants that might be Italian or other who do as much takeout as we do, what do you see size containers are most popular with them? And sure enough, just like you said, because we're never asked, we start talking about this restaurant and that restaurant, and boy, they use a big one and they use a small one. And next thing you know, you have a whole competitive set around all the Italian restaurants in town and what size portions they're giving out for their takeout. Doesn't sound like a big deal, but in the restaurant business, it's a huge deal. It also could be, a competitive disadvantage if you're using cheap takeout, right? And that person gets the food home. It happened to you, right? It's all over the place, versus spending a little extra and having a good experience. So those vendor partners, very often are missed in the process, but a great place to understand not only the market and what's happening competitively, but how you're viewed in the market and what they think about you as a company to do business with.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. I agree. I think the vendors is a great source. I never thought of it as, I guess, looking to see where I am in the market, which is very unique. I think that's a great perspective. I did appreciate calling up, Karcher, Diversity, or any of the other vendors and asking them questions and having them help me. If I had a big proposal, an RFP, why wouldn't I lean on somebody that's going to benefit from it? And I'd call you up and say, hey, look, we've got this. What do you think? And you could tell me exactly. And it was huge to be able to use that. So that makes a total sense.
Yeah, a really great resource of knowledge that's very rarely tapped. And it's interesting because a lot of people say, well, I don't have, you use the example of a supplier, distributor, manufacturer, but there's a lot of people, regardless of, what industry you're in, who call on or have relationships with different people. You just have to maybe think about it a little bit differently on who they could be. But yeah, really, really solid input of information that you don't necessarily think about all the time.
Sure. Well, if you're an accounting office, you are buying software, you're buying office supplies, furniture. You're working with other attorneys potentially or M&A firms. So there are other vendors there. And you could pick, if you're a coffee shop, obviously you have the food service vendors. And so, yeah, every business type, whether your service or a product, is certainly able to use ask a vendor. I love that. Hey,
Yeah.
what do you think? What do you hear about? What could we do to improve? Who should we target? Yeah, I think that's great. And
Yeah.
and working together.
How do we treat you as a vendor partner? Right.
Right.
I mean, there's a lot of those pieces. Those get to be those nervous questions. You got to want to answer the truth. But, how good are we to do business with? Of the other people you do business with, do you like doing business with us as much or better, and why? I mean, those are because typically businesses don't treat one stakeholder, a vendor, different than they treat another stakeholder, their employees or their clients. So if you really want people to give you, and you really want to understand at a deep level who you are as a business, and why people like or don't like doing business with you, all three of those or four of those stakeholder groups are really, really important.
Yeah. Okay. So we've got 4 stakeholder groups under discover, and then we go to develop.
Yeah.
Elaborate on that.
This is the passion, right? This is the messages in the bottle. This is all of that information that we gathered in discovery and getting it down to a synergistic piece. I will tell you the greatest gift to this work and that synergization, if that's a word, is synergization a word? Synergy.
It is today. Yeah.
It is today.
Yeah.
Has been the advent of AI tools. And I talk about utilizing AI in the book as a really big helper. You don't want to outsource this work to AI totally, because culture and those human touches, and why the organization breathes and sleeps and does what it does. You don't want to lose those specific things. You don't want AI to make you a generalist when we're trying to be unique and special. But in synergizing all of that information, it really is a big help. The thing that, and we touched on this just a little bit, but the thing that I really focus on in develop and the creation of those unique value propositions. And Graham, I put that word unique out there in front for a reason, because I wanted to make a statement. You hear people talk about value props all the time, competitive advantage all the time, but unique value propositions leaves that message that why I'm trying to make sure that I'm differentiated, right? So when I create these messages, I want to make sure they're differentiated. And really, 2 big pieces of that. We talked about it earlier. I want to touch on it again, though. It's those like competencies, right? So a lot of people give up on the like competencies. They say, oh, I do those things. My competitors do those things. Our client assumes that we do the same thing, so I really don't have to try and differentiate there. That's so far from the truth. Again, back to the love of our lives, right? Cleaning. When I was in the business and we were developing unique value propositions, everybody talked about janitorial or custodial, janitorial or custodial, janitorial or custodial. It was about 2014, 2015. And green cleaning was really hitting stride. That occupant experience was really hitting stride. And so we talked about the exact same service as cleaning for wellness, about the outcome that we were delivering versus the tactic janitorial custodial to get there. So, in our business, just very much like other businesses, somebody's interviewing 3 clients. At 1:00, somebody talks about janitorial. At 2:00, somebody talks about janitorial. And at 3:00, somebody talks about cleaning for wellness. And it's just enough of a tick that makes you look unique and different on a like competency, something that you and your competitors do the same. On the other side, your truly unique competencies, and let's be honest, most organizations have 1, 2, or 3 things that they are truly unique around, right? It could be your culture that's unique and different and how you operate. It could be your competency. So maybe you have a really good IT department that's not a functional department, but a drive department on technology that you deploy for your industry that's unique. Or maybe you give, a 30-day money back guarantee that nobody else gives because you're so confident in your service, for example. But what it is, it's not about like competencies and truly unique competencies. It's about the combination of those like competencies and those unique competencies to give your organization the 4 or 5 or 6 unique value propositions that you talk to a client about or potentially talk to a client about. In the next D, the deploy, when we're taking these unique value propositions to the marketplace, we're teaching client-facing people, that sales organization, you don't need to tell the prospect about all 6 or 7 things that we're great at. What you need to do is understand which 2 or 3 that they care about the most and articulate why you do those better than anybody on the planet. So really that's the develop piece to how unique you are and how you articulate that, and then how that translates into you take it into the market when you start going out to deploy.
Mm-hmm. One thing that made me think of is if you're doing your presentation, and we all do it, and we can pick janitorial, for instance, just because that's the fun one to talk about. I'll first one to talk about cleaning the toilets and what tools you can use for that. But when you're saying we're not differentiating ourselves, and if we are sitting in that presentation, like you say, and it's 1, 2, 3 o'clock, we get the time slot we want. Should we touch on the things that everybody does anyway, and then also add our unique value proposition so that they're not going, hey, wait, they didn't talk about doing this or that? What's your thought there?
I think you absolutely do talk about them. I think you just need to make sure you're talking about them differently, right? So you want to make sure, because those are some of those ticket to entry that your prospect is checking off to find a baseline competency. You don't want to obviously forget to talk about those. What I like doing is making sure that you just don't take those as a layup, and you use that opportunity in those kind of check the box areas. You take that opportunity to try the best you can to build some uniqueness and some differentiation in those.
Got it. Okay. And then, so we've developed that, we've met, now we're deploying. What does deploy mean?
Yeah. So when you think about becoming growth enabled, you're really now taking that message to the marketplace. The one point I want to always stress here is that your whole organization needs to be able to sell and support the unique value proposition that you've delivered. It's not just the people who you would normally think, right? The sales organization as always. But, when the accounting department is dealing with a client, right? And they are articulating why and how we are executing your bill or getting your invoice correct or why it wasn't correct. All of those are important touch points that add to your unique value proposition or don't. And I always use that example because people laugh and they're like, I can't believe we lost a client because we couldn't get the bill right. But it seems like everybody I talk to has lost a client because they can't get the bill right, So it's all these pieces of the organization, whether it's the person who answers the phone, it's the person who does the invoicing, it's the person who does the cleaning or does the quality assurance or is responsible for doing the quarterly business review. All of those are an inflection and a reflection of your organization, and they all come together in creating your unique value proposition. So way back where we started, when you think about that 30-second elevator speech and you think about why a client should choose you, think about not only the people that you would think who need to answer that question, the owner, the sales team, but think about everybody in your organization being able to answer that question the same way. And why this is really important is because, you know, most people in their roles want to understand how they fit into the bigger picture. They want to understand how their work and effort translates into the success of the organization. And what better way to ground all of your employees in how we're successful here than for them to understand who we are and what value we're trying to create for clients.
No, I agree totally. That's if we're not creating that value for the clients, then they have no reason to stay. And so you need to make sure that everything is aligned from all the way from discovery to deploy. And that when we're deploying it, that person that's cleaning at 2:00 in the morning still gets it and understands it. If the owner of the building happened to walk in at 2:00, they could share that.
Yeah. One of my favorite sales success stories was I asked the client why they chose us, right? Why at the end of the day, when you went through all this process, the RFI, RFP presentation, why did you choose us? And they said, because every interaction through this whole process that I had with your organization, everybody said the same thing. So I know it must be true. And if you think about that, well, for some of your listeners, maybe not understand, but in the cleaning business, that a lot of it happens at night, there's this inherent distrust between your client and cleaning companies. And that's because at the end of the day, they really don't know what happened. If it looked clean, it must be clean. Well, maybe it is and maybe it isn't. And that inherent distrust comes through in that statement where somebody said, I'm choosing this organization because everybody talked about what they do the same way, that it has to be true. And so it spoke, quite frankly, to really a client pain point, which is distrust that nobody talks about, in a way that's really, really powerful.
Yeah, I love that. So we've deployed and now we're delighting. The fourth D in the roadmap. What's delight?
I'm so passionate about this one. I'm passionate about all of you. You can tell in my voice, but this one I think holds really some of the best opportunities for your audience and for anybody who wants to grow a business, regardless of the business. And that is the utilization of your best clients as your advocates to help you amplify why you're unique and why you're different and the value that you create. Your best clients can talk about your business in a way and with a credibility that you can't do yourself. You just can't do it. And what's really interesting here, and everybody laughs about it when I say it this way, Graham, is if you ask people what their turnover rate is, what their client attrition rate is, it's one of the greatest things they like to talk about. We only lose 2%, or we lose 3%, or we lose 4%. So we retain 96, 97% of our clients. Why is it then when that proposal goes out and you're a finalist and it comes back and they ask for references, there's the reference mad dash around the office? One, first of all, they weren't in the proposal, which is they should be in the proposal to begin with, right? Clients that look like you, that care about what you care about, that were successful. Here's 3 testimonials right in the proposal to help make your decision. They're not, but that's okay. So we get the opportunity. And then there's that mad dash. Who do we have? Do we have some in education? Do we have some in healthcare? Where are they? Oh, that person's not a client anymore. Don't use that one. We had really terrible quality scores last quarter. They're not happy with us, right? There's that whole kind of piece. And it really is the gold within everybody's organization. Clients who love what you do and how and why you do it. And if you, again, it's almost like those vendor partners that we talked about before. If you just ask them, they will typically amplify why you're great. And why is this so important in today's market? Well, you know better than anybody that marketing is playing a bigger role than ever in the sales process, in the client education process. You'll hear it all the time. 70 to 80% of the buying decision is made before a prospect even interacts with your client. So the information that they're getting about your business typically comes from all of your social pieces, right? Your website. They look and follow you on all of your social feeds. And so when you're trying to get information to that client, what I call creating pull, right? Your sales team is pushing, your sales team is pushing, your sales team is pushing. The pull piece is to get information to that client that says, wow, this company is different. This company is unique. I can't wait to talk to this company. And because the way they articulate what they do, and oh my goodness, the way that their clients talk about them is the way I want to talk about my vendor partners. Let me, invite these people to look at my business. And the greatest gift ever, you'll starting to hear it more and more, is right. A salesperson comes back and goes, man, that was a great sales call. I went and the person was actually happy to see me. They talked about why I was there and why they chose to interview us. And really all I had to do was validate their thinking about how great our organization was. Remember back to deploy and making sure everybody's on the same page? You better make sure that that person sitting across from that prospect is reiterating what the organization is communicating across the organization. But I love Delight. I think it's underutilized and much more important today in social selling than ever before, and especially the way prospects and clients gain information about your organization.
Yeah. And I think I know we've been talking about janitorial, but we're in a trust recession. We're in a trust recession across the board, across industry, family dynamic, you name it. That's where we have issues right now. And so if you can go and have that delight, you're going to overcome some of that recession and build it up. And those things should be on your website too. Having a testimonial on your website will go a long way to where you want to be. And so if you can get those, post those, that will help with that 70, 80% you just mentioned. So can I skip one of the D's? I don't feel like discovery. Can I just go straight to develop? What's that look like? Or can I skip deploy and just, what is it? Can I do any of them, or do I have to go for?
It really matters what level of competency you want to obtain. I like saying it that way because nobody wants some like lower level of competency, right?
Yeah.
If you really want to do it well, you can't skip a phase. I know it was a softball question and I appreciate it. You really can't do it. And ironically, a lot of organizations do. When I went from the manufacturing side over to the services side of the cleaning business, a lot of manufacturers reached out to me because I had relationships with them when I was on the other side, and now I was kind of an insider on the BSC side. And I was always amazed, and where I was a manufacturer, we weren't great at it either, but I was always amazed that most manufacturers brought value propositions to me on the services side that were basically baked and about 80% good. And because they assumed without, validating that assumption. And, I would always ask the same question, is this finished, or do you have time for a draft? In the book we talk about, as we said before, is this written in pencil, or have you already printed 3,000 copies? Because if they had already printed 3,000 copies, then I wasn't going to spend a whole lot of time trying to help them. But I would see all the time, manufacturers in their brochures have, cleaners with no gloves on toilets, just basic things that if they had asked somebody who sat in your desk to say, would you just take a look at this to see if I got it? That final mile, right? That 85 to 100% of the things you could help them with, say, when you bring this to somebody who looks like me, you're gonna show a lot more competently than not. So, it I've seen all the mistakes to your question on skipping all of the pieces, and you just don't get a good enough product skipping the steps to differentiate yourself uniquely in the marketplace. You just simply don't. And I like to say I'm a little older now, right? So to me, it's more about people being successful than people doing it for doing it. This is as important strategic initiative as anything you can do in your business. Think about this. This initiative is to understand what makes us unique as a business, how that uniqueness aligns to satisfy our clients, and how we deliver that as an organization across the board to delight our clients. Tell me that the ERP implementation is more important than that.
Right.
We spend a year implementing the ERP system, everybody just takes it, right? We spend a year evaluating our fleet and making sure that we have, the right vehicles at the right price with the right software. But for some reason, this work, I say, takes 6 to 8 months to do it really well. If you want to dot all the I's and cross the T's and come out with something special, that unique and different. And people are like, oh, can we do it in 4? Like, no, you can't. It's either important to you or it's not. So, that's the big piece there, that a long way around your question is you can't skip steps. And if you're not ready to do it now, come back to it when you are ready to do it. But I will promise you, for everyone that I've gone through it with, the business outcomes get meaningfully different. Your cultural components become meaningfully different, and your overall organizational success across the way it runs and the harmony upon which it runs gets tremendously better. And I always will tell people, if they're willing to invest the time, I promise the end result will be worth the effort.
So everybody's busy, and you just mentioned it. We're focusing on some things that, like the ERP or trucks or the fleet, whatever, and they're busy, and they come to you and they say, "Hey, John, I want to do this, but I only have a little bit of time. Can you kind of chip away at this? Is this something, if they say, yes, I'm committed and I understand it's going to take 6 months, 8 months, whatever it is, can they do it with their busy schedule?"
And that's why I've built it that 6, 8, even 10 months based on the business and where they are. One, you have to make room for it. But when you make room for it, we absolutely understand that you're still running a business. People are still working 100 to 110%. That big client proposal that you've been hoping would come in, comes in. So you have to be able to bob and weave. But going back to your question, if you're committed to the process, right, the 4D roadmap is a roadmap. It builds on itself from one step to another. If you have to step away and say, hey, we planned on doing client interviews in July. We just got this big startup, for example, back to our business in July. We can surely pause it for, 30 days and pick back up again. It's not that stringent that you lose the information. And actually, again, back to the AI plug, right? We have all the data. It's there. It's stored. It's valuable, so we can pick it up. So I wouldn't not do the process because you're busy. Actually, it's not a deterrent to. Just know that the process has the ability to ebb and flow based on what's happening in the business at the time. But don't not do it because of the length. The length is built to be able to be done while business is happening.
Yeah. Okay. And you talk about business and growth heroics, and you can't ride a tired horse, or you didn't say that. I just said that, but the superstars.
Yeah, there's no silver bullets. There's no one hit wonders. No, there isn't.
Right. So how do we shift that viewpoint as a founder rather?
Yeah. It really goes back to the goal. Are we trying to be successful this year, next year, or are we trying to have repeatable, predictable growth over an extended amount of time? Right. And so repeatable, predictable growth, most business owners will tell you, I rather grow a steady 6, 8, 10, 12% a year, whatever your growth target is, and build an organization that I can do that consistently versus growing 30% one year and down 5% the other year and up 10% one. It's really hard to budget and to scale a business that way. So what we try and talk about is when you're a growth-enabled organization, it isn't reliant on a single person or a group of single people. Growth-enabled organizations grow because the whole organization is in sync and delivering the value proposition across the board. Again, in our janitorial business, operations plays as big a role in steady, repeatable growth as sales do in not only keeping the customers that we have, but also selling tag services, producing great work. So when the client expands, they give you that new building, all those type of things. So you can't just rely on one person to be your growth enabled person. You want a growth enabled organization. Always growth enabled organization wins the long race in a much stronger and better way. And if by chance that silver bullet leaves, why, for some reason, those rainmakers, they don't seem to stay around for very long. I'm not exactly sure why, but when they leave and if that was your strategy and you don't have growth enablement underneath it, then things get really difficult. I will tell you one other thing that I think is interesting for your audience. Everybody, and it touches on a little bit about your question, when is the right time to do this work? And you would think that people would call us in all the time when things were bad. Typically, we get called in when things are really good and the business is growing, but the market shifts because of that growth. So, for example, as you grow, your clients get more sophisticated, they get bigger, and what they care about, right, their pain points and success factors change. As you grow, your competitive set changes. Remember, you used to be the big cat, on campus, and now all of a sudden you've grown to a point where those big cats that you didn't compete against that have more capabilities, more references, more client advocacies are showing up where you're bidding now. So a lot of times people come to us and say, oh man, there's been a shift in the business. We need to sharpen our saw around our unique value proposition, our go-to-market. We need to interview these new clients we're calling on. We need to do another competitive analysis with these two new competitors to see how we line up and how we have to bob and weave to compete against them, because they're now going at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, and we're at 3 o'clock. Two new people we've never seen before in the 1 and 2 o'clock slot. How do we compete? So for your audience, it's really important. When things are good, people are like, hey, value proposition is great. We got no problems. Our marketing's great. We don't need it. Well, what's going to happen is, I can tell you, at some point in the near future, that's going to slow because you've grown yourself in a place that you got to be better and sharper than you ever have before.
Yeah, you're absolutely right that if you're going after a small little office building with a couple of employees and you're cleaning it, just show up, do a decent job. That's it. You probably don't even need a proposal, hardly. And as it gets more sophisticated and you do something for a government agency, let's say with 50 sites across 5 states, now all of a sudden you're having to step up your game because of who you're serving in the government agency, but also because you're going to be competing against a whole lot more sophisticated person or team or company than you've ever done before. And we saw that. We had to elevate our game as we grew, for sure. And it's important for people to be aware of that you can get comfortable in these small little things and, oh, gee, this proposal worked before. It's like, yeah, but it's not going to work anymore. And you need to elevate your game and seek out guidance, find somebody in the industry that's across the country that's not bidding on it, that's bigger, more sophisticated, and ask them. And if no matter what industry it is, there are people that are willing to help and share, especially if you're part of an organization, an association, trade groups, whatever it may be. You can certainly get some guidance around that. Back to team, though. If you want, and you're interviewing your team, or I'm coming in talking to the team, how do you, as the owner, the founder, get marketing, sales, operations, accounting, all aligned around the same page, all aligned around and telling the same story, so that when we are needing to be more sophisticated or we're being tested elsewhere, it's the same feeling, the same, it's trust and honesty and capability all the way through. How do you get everybody on the same page?
It's such a an important question, and a well-timed. I was just on before our call with somebody who asked me to come in and speak to their 30 employees at kind of an employee gathering and celebration. And he wants me to talk about, the title of the talk, your role in our value creation, right? So you think about it, again, you start from the client perspective. You start with that question, why should I choose you? And when you answer that breakdown of why your organization is specific, you will quickly see how the delivery driver, right? How the customer service person, how the accounting person, how the whole soup is made by individual roles, because we can't deliver what these clients are asking us to deliver without you in your role. So you have to bring it back to them by what you're trying to accomplish with that client. And through that client, when there are advocates, here's where we win. Judy, we won in accounting because our bills were flawless and it was noticed and our competitors weren't. Steve, every time the client receives our stuff, it's stacked properly, it's in the right order, and you guys got more kudos for that. So when you think about the and you guys get a lot of them in your business, when you think about the kudos that your team gets, it's really interesting. It's across the board. It's for different things that you might not even think that would happen, but everybody plays a role in that, right? Everybody plays a role, that kind of hero's role in what we do. And we got to just tell people that what they do is important, and here's how it connects to what our clients expect.
Yeah. I think you just hit on something that I don't even know if you intentionally did, but we have to tell the employee, the person on the team, that they're doing a good job and why and how. And even if it's something small, like stacking the receiving stuff in a specific order, or whatever it may be in accounting, just getting invoices correct, or payroll. The payroll, we didn't have, we've gone 3 months without having to reissue a paycheck because you got the hours right. Just complimenting people and keeping them positive and engaged is going to go a long way. So has there been, when you're doing this on your own company, we're saying, okay, we're at UVP Solutions. Where are you in the stage? Have you done it all for yourself? What, tell us about your 4 points.
Yeah. Funny, we just went through this. We just went through this process because we're going to launch a new website.
Oh,
And in that website, we had to go and make sure that the website spoke to the people we want it to speak to, right? I I knew what I wanted it to say, but I needed to ensure that it resonated in tone, words, look that we wanted and our clients expected us. So it was very interesting because, we're a growth enablement advisory, but a lot of stuff we do is marketing. So it needed to look competent from a look and feel perspective, where when you're articulating the brand, it looked like the brand. At the same time, it's technical in the model and the approach. So there's a lot of right brain creative, but there's a lot of left brain model engineering process. So how do you make the model not too soft with the marketing and the piece? And we had a robust discussion about this, and I think we got to the right level, but we had to, one, figure out the words that were right based on the value that we create. We had to articulate what we call our soul. Our soul is the combination of our core values and purpose in a meaningful way. We have about 5 what we call value delivered components that we want every client to know that they get in their interaction. One of our big ones is um, is not dependency. We don't want people to be dependent on our service. We want to transfer that knowledge so that when you and your organization need to do this work again in 2 or 3 years, you can do it. So all these kind of components came together, look, feel, and in that we just put, we have 3, but we just wrote our first new case study around delighting and a client that fundamentally changed their business top line and bottom line, implementing the principles of the book. So we're not exempt from doing it, but boy, it's liberating when you have to do it yourself and ask those tough questions. I thanks for putting me on the spot on that one, Graham.
Well, I wouldn't want to get you, I'll let you get away with it. If you're going to talk about it for others, you may as well be held accountable for your own.
Yeah.
It's a lot easier to do it for others than it is for yourself.
Yeah.
And so, if you're, when does a website come out and who's your ideal prospect? Is there industries that work best? Tell us a little bit about who you're looking to work with and what you can do with those companies.
Yeah, thanks for asking. So the book came out June 2nd. It's on Amazon. Define Value, Drive Growth. Getting some humbling, fantastic feedback on it. Really, because it's a practical approach for people like your listeners from all different businesses, all different sizes. It really goes across, industries. It goes across segments. It goes across size, and really has this nice practical approach. So book is out. We're going to officially launch the business around mid-July. And that's where, people have been asking, can you help me implement the principles of the book? Because we don't have the necessarily the capabilities in house to do it. So we'll be doing that mid-July, and hopefully helping businesses of all sizes, all industries, really grow, because it's, as you know from your business, growth solves a lot of problems in the business. It allows you to scale. It allows you to give promotions. It allows you to pay more money to more people as things get more expensive. So really, there's a lot behind the model and the book, but at the end of the day, we're trying to help businesses run better businesses and grow more predictable in a more predictable manner, so they can scale.
Yeah. I think that's something that businesses, sometimes forget, that predictive and or positive growth is Even if it's 3%, that's positive. And if it's 1% negative, that's hard to overcome. Now, all of a sudden, you have momentum going the wrong direction, and it's more than 1% to turn it around. And so I think that predictive element of growth is critical. And so how do people get a hold of you? What's the best way? And I'm going to put all this in the show notes too, so people can see it. But how do they get a hold of you? And we'll put an Amazon link to the book to find out more about the 4Ds and how you can work with them, help them with that.
Yeah, just real quick, I had a mentor who once said, what you'll always remember is growth is the oxygen of an organization. And I've always remembered that, to your exact point. Growth is the oxygen of an organization. And the more oxygen you had, the better the organization. It's really neat. So if you want to email me, very simply, John, John, at UVP, Unique Value Proposition Solutions.com, UVPsolutions.com, or visit our website at UVPsolutions.com, and you can get in contact with us there. But yeah, we're always looking to chat with people who really want to investigate if this process is right for them, if their business is ready for it, and what it would take to do it. Again, in the book at the back, you'll see there's a Greek proverb I love, and it says, "Society grows great when old men plant trees whose shade they will never sit in." And that's really what we're trying to do in the business, is to give some of this information. You know me a long time, and I would be really mad at myself if I had left this world and didn't put all this information in some format that maybe somebody else can get some value out of it. So don't be shy, ask the question, and if we can help you, great. If we can't, we'll hopefully steer you in the direction that can.
Okay. And did I forget anything? Did I forget anything you want to cover? Any points or something at all along the way?
No, I think it's terrific. The one that I really like that I want to reiterate is I always say your industry, your competitive set, none of that dictates the value that you can create in your business. And we came from a tough industry in cleaning. Just because you all were in the cleaning business, you guys built this fundamentally different business. And we're very successful at it. No matter if you're in the cleaning business, or you're a doctor, or you're a whatever, it doesn't mean that you have to do it just like everybody else. You figure out why your business is special and unique. You figure out what your target customers care about, and deliver that better than anybody on the planet. And if that means doing it differently, do it differently.
I love it. And on that note, we're going to say thanks for listening to the Intentional Leadership Podcast. John Ravaris, go check out his book on Amazon. We'll put the link in the show notes. And the book is, oh man, I forgot the book name. Help me out, John.
Define Value, Drive Growth, Graham. That's going to cost you 10 copies, brother.
Define value and oh man, I have it right in front of you. Define value and drive growth. Build the clients that choose and competitors that envy. It was released in June.